All right, there we go. Hello everyone, how's it going? Team here, and this is BxJS Weekly, episode 125, bringing you all the best JavaScript news of the week in a podcast form. And yeah, we got another one of those super tiny episodes because for whatever reason there wasn't that many things this week. I'm honestly not sure why exactly, but let's just get started. As usual, the first section of the week is getting started, and we got just two articles here that are actually pretty good. Hey Ermac, welcome to the stream. Alright, so the first article is Modern React Testing Part 4, Cypress and Cypress Testing Library. I think we already had one of the other parts on the podcast, at least one of them, maybe all of them, because those are really good articles about testing React. So if you are working on React stuff and you wanted to get into testing but you didn't know how, absolutely do check all four of those. The fourth one that I'm highlighting today is talking specifically about end-to-end testing, Cypress and Cypress Testing Library. That simplifies a bunch of things for you. If you never did any end-to-end testing, this is a really good starting point. It does an amazing job of explaining basically how to set everything up, how to mock your service worker, and so on and so forth. There is a whole ton of information here. Really good getting started guide essentially for Cypress and Cypress Testing Library. So if that sounds interesting, do check this one out. Hey Aaron, welcome to the stream. Hey Tosun, welcome to the stream. Have you tried MSW yet? I think I've heard the name, but wait a second. What was it? MSW. Right. I think I already seen it mentioned somewhere, but I haven't tried it myself. So hope that answers the question. Continuing, we got what the fuck is composition? Another write-up from Dan Abramov on his whatthefuck.is website. This time around talking about composition. So, there's nothing super complex here, let's put it this way, but if you are just getting started with JavaScript and if you don't know what the composition is, or maybe you're struggling to understand all the sides of it, let's put it this way, then do absolutely read through this. It is a lot longer than all the previous things that he posted, but it does a very good job of explaining what is composition, how does it works, and there's a bunch of pretty good examples in JavaScript, including examples in React, which is quite nice. So there we go. I've got a lot of links if you want me to send them. Sure, do send them, please. Share them in the Discord in the interesting links channel. That will be amazing. Anyway, continuing, we are coming to the articles and news section. We got 4 articles here that are, all of them are pretty good. So the first one is from the WebKit team, and it's titled Speculation in JavaScriptCore. And it talks about speculative compilation for JavaScript that is done in JavaScriptCore, which is, the engine that Safari uses. Now, this one is really big. Like, if you see me scroll through this now, I think it took me about 30 to 40 minutes to read through all of that. But this thing is absolutely fascinating to read. So, like, if you got 30 minutes of your time, if you are interested in JavaScript engines, if you are interested in speculative compilation, speculative typing, that kind of stuff, very low-level things that you normally, as a JavaScript developer, you don't even think about that, right? Unless you need to optimize your code heavily and there's some like bottlenecks that you absolutely must cover. Now, yeah, it's not an easy read, so be prepared to read through some parts for a couple of times and then go Googling for some of the terms that are mentioned here, because this thing is highly technical. But again, if you have even slightest interest in JavaScript engines or speculative compilation, absolutely take like an hour of your time and go read through this. It is really good. Hey Pego, welcome to the stream. Okay, anyway, continuing, we got introducing TinaCMS inline content editing for React. So it's kind of a tutorial, but not really. So I put it into articles because it sort of expects that you have at least the basic understanding of Next.js and React. And this actually teaches you how to set up the, it's not a plugin, like a package, I guess, called Tina, to use with Next.js to dynamically edit your pages, which I think I've seen the Tina at some point, but I don't remember why I didn't look at it closer, I think. Maybe because it was purely Gatsby thing at first. But anyway, so the Tina is this package that essentially allows you to add a button to your website where you can click edit and then literally just, edit anything on the website dynamically. Well, in this case, it wants me to connect to GitHub because it commits the changes to the Git. But the tutorial here teaches you how to configure Tina so that you can edit your Next.js website right on that website, which seems pretty damn powerful, to be honest. So it's a pretty nice tutorial. There's, again, it's not super complex. Basically uses markdown files as the end destination. So it just writes down to markdown from Tina and then renders that as the Next.js pages. So nothing super complex. This is a sort of sponsored post, I guess, from the snip card. So it's their blog. And in the end, they show you how to add the snip card to the website, but you can safely skip that if you're not interested in e-commerce solutions. Otherwise, it's a really good tutorial. Tina looks like a pretty nice tool, and probably we should try it at some point because that looks like a really neat way of managing websites. So there we go. Hey, man on the run, welcome to the stream. Hello from Greece. Well, hello from Germany to you. Right, next thing we got here is records and tuples for React. So we talked about records and tuples moving to stage, what was it, 2, 1? I don't remember. Yeah, stage 2 already, right? Okay. Last week, and this article basically goes in depth on the records and tuples and specifically how adding them to the language will help with React performance and React bugs that are quite typical for when working with immutable data, essentially. Now, there's a bunch of obvious things such as with records, you can actually compare records, and if they look similarly, they will always compare as true. Whereas with the objects, that's not the case, right? Because you compare by reference. And that means that in React, when you're going to do the shallow renders, it will always render only when the immutable data actually changed, which is very damn convenient. You no longer have to do any, random comparisons, essentially, which is kind of damn cool. And yeah, there's obviously a bunch of other pretty nice examples here that show you how the immutable data can simplify working with React. Again, I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that React is built around a lot of like functional programming paradigms that kind of most of the time, how would I put this? It's not that they're forced to work with immutable data, but they assume, I guess. So in functional programming, you typically assume that you're working with immutable data, right? Which makes things a lot easier because your functions take in one data and then return completely different things. So if you assume it's immutable, things got a lot easier. But yeah, it's like if you're curious to see how records and tuples will change working with your approaches to React, I guess, if you have any interest in that, this is a really good write-up. Let me have a look at the chat. Have you read the book on TypeScript by Basarat? I assume it's called TypeScript Deep Dive. No, I have not actually read any books on TypeScript. I'm still trying to find time to finish the exoframe rewrite to TypeScript that I've started a few, I guess it was like already a month ago or something. But yes, I first want to do that. I don't know if I need to read a book on TypeScript. Like, I think the official docs are really good, so I'm not sure if I need a separate book on that. People are hoping not to have to use memo hook when using the immutable types. I don't think that's going to replace the use memo hook, right? Because use memo is memoization is a very functional programming concept. And there's a lot of cases, even when you have immutable data, when you still need to memoize something to speed things up, right? So it's like, it doesn't really, I wouldn't say like, okay, obviously it will save you this hook in some cases, but I don't think it's gonna be that life-changing basically and remove the use memo hook at all. But I do think the records and tuples will have an immense effect on the React apps we write, and specifically on the performance, because you no longer have to do any expensive comparison functions. You can just compare things directly, right? So which is kind of great. But anyway, continuing, we got last article for today. I created the exact same app in React and Vue. Here are the differences. 2020 edition, now with React hooks and Vue 3 composition API, which is kind of cool because this is still, release candidate is still not out. But just as the title says, so the author here created 2 apps, exactly same apps in React using hooks, and in Vue version 3 using the composition API, and compares how exactly you do things in Vue and React. How do you approach different issues? How do you mutate the data? And so on and so forth. It's a really nice step-by-step comparison. So if you were interested in, I don't know, if you're writing React and you were interested in seeing the Vue 3 composition API, or the other way around, if you're working with Vue and you're curious about React hooks, absolutely do read through this article. You will get a really good idea of how those two compare in most cases. Like there are some, things that are like a tiny bit silly, I guess I would put it this way. But other than that, it's a really good comparison. It shows you that the interesting thing is that React and Vue are no longer as different as they were. Like, yes, Vue has some things that are like essentially shortcuts, I would call them, that make it a bit nicer, I guess, to work with some of the things. But again, on the coast of remembering all of this stuff, right? So in React, you would have to handle the enter key press yourself, while in Vue, you can just say V on key up enter. But again, you have to remember that. But yeah, it's a pretty nice comparison. So if you're curious, do check this one out. Let me have a look at the chat. TypeScript book is a really good intro, effective TypeScript, and another one that's really good, full of patterns. Maybe I will have a look at them at some point, but I mean, I have to find time for that. I wonder if we can follow the pattern that Immer uses to imperatively update the immutable objects, but still not mutate. But Immer, like the whole point of Immer API is that it actually presents the objects as mutable, so you work on them as if they were mutable, but in the end you get immutable, like unchanged thing, right? So I don't think that's possible to do on an engine level. That would feel very weird, and you need some sort of a distinction between two, because with Immer it's the function that you wrap it with, and yeah, it's kind of, I'm not sure how would that work. I don't really see that working, to be honest. I saw some RxJS code alongs by Vladilen Minin. Might help me reason about and write understand code. What's your opinion on it? RxJS is a great little tool. I already said about that. So like RxJS is an amazing tool when you have to work with data over time. But everything else, like most of the time when people use RxJS, is just an overkill. Let's be honest here. It has some like legit use cases when it makes things 100 times easier, but if you're trying to use it everywhere, it's just a pain in the ass, basically. Think of updating nested objects in an immutable way where you have to spread the parent object. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but that's just a matter of tooling, right? So like if you look at the functional programming languages that have immutability by default, like say Clojure or whatever, you usually have the tools that allow you to update like a property, like to basically clone an object while updating just one property, right? So it's just a matter of utility functions. I don't think the record and Tuples proposal actually have any of them, but I'm guessing that we're going to see something like Lodash for immutable programming, right? Yeah, Lenses is a great example. Yeah, so we're probably going to get some library for that. Maybe it's going to end up being the part of STD, like standard library. That is, I think it's still a proposal, right? So GC39 lib. There was a proposal, right, for standard library. Oh, what was it? Where was it? Come on now. What is going on, Google? Proposal. Yeah, built-in modules. There we go. So I think this is... what stage is it, actually? I remember seeing it like a couple of years ago, I think, first time. And I'm not even sure which stage it is. Is it even at some stage? No, implementations, reference, standard library, blah, blah, blah. 12 months ago, last update. So I guess it's kind of in limbo for now, but maybe this will end up being, more developed, and we'll get like a standard library semantics, and we will get some immutable, like some things to work with immutable records, essentially. Let me see. RxJS is brilliant, but it can get addictive. Yes, when I first learned RxJS, I was trying to apply it everywhere. That was a big mistake. I mean, it does work. That's the thing, right? So the thing is, it's so flexible that you can literally apply it everywhere you want. The problem is you don't really have to, and it just complicates things most of the time. Hey, Frontend Nexus, welcome to the stream. Is this about making core.js the standard? No, it's not about making core.js the standard. The proposal essentially is about introducing the standard library namespace, I guess, in the module. So you can import something from standard library, whatever that is. And then the standard library then could be expanded to include, like utility stuff from Lodash that is everyone using anyway, and things like this, basically. Which is, I think, a really good idea, but for some reason it didn't go anywhere yet. But yeah, we're going to see how that develops. It is very neat. I definitely approve of that, and it will be cool to see something like this. And, instead of having a third-party modules that you have to pull in from NPM just to have a nice std-lib that would provide you most of those tiny things, that would be really, really cool. But we'll see how that develops, because it's like it's been around for a while. Isn't there XJS capability to write understandable code overweights being overkill in some situation? I mean, I don't like RxJS doesn't really like. Here's the thing, right? You can write understandable code without RxJS as well. So I don't think that's a benefit. RxJS works really well, again, as I said, when you have a lot of data over time and you have to process it somehow, right? So you build this pipeline from RxJS, from observable, that will do something to data and then consume it in some way. For any other use cases, it's just going to be a pain in the ass to work, to debug. You're going to have debugging got a bit easier after they did the rewrite, so there's like a lot less nested functions now. But still, like, if you don't need this reactivity, if you don't need this, data over time, if it's just like once, use promise. If you do something, I don't know. So the point is, right? If you don't have data over time, most of the time you can go without RxJS, and it's going to be a lot simpler and a lot easier to read. That's kind of my point. You get tempted to be clever. Yeah, absolutely. Like, oh man, the number of operators RxJS has is mind-blowing, and you can do some crazy things with those. But most of the time, you really don't need this. Anyhow, let us continue. The next section is tips, tricks, and bit-sized awesomeness. We only have one thing here that I also didn't know, which is really neat. So if you ever tried CSS, you know that there's a box shadow property that doesn't really work with transparent images, right? So if you apply it, it will actually create this sort of box shadow around the image itself, around the edges of the image, which will be square or, rectangle or whatever the shape of your image is, but it doesn't actually account for transparency. Well, it turns out if you actually use filter drop shadow, it will actually drop shadow on the non-transparent parts of the image the way you expect, which is absolutely awesome. So if you are doing CSS and you never heard about filter drop shadow, do check this out. Maybe this will make your designs a bit nicer. Right, that's it for tips, tricks, and bit-sized awesomeness. We are coming to the releases section. We got the whole 5 of them today. First one being Next.js 9.5. That brings us, first of all, it brings Webpack 5 support beta, which you can optionally opt in and see how much it will improve your build size and build speed. So if you have a really big app that is supposed to deliver next level of performance and, the build size essentially decrease your build size is what I'm trying to say. There is a bunch of additional things. I think the most, the biggest thing here is stable incremental static regenerations that allows you to rebuild static pages after you've deployed in milliseconds, which is going to be very helpful for the cases where you have the content management system that uses the Next.js as a front end. So your changes in CMS will be reflected almost immediately, which is kind of cool. And there's a bunch of other things here that are, just like less exciting, I guess, than everything else. But still, Next.js is an amazing framework, keeps remaining amazing framework. So if you never tried it, definitely do give it a shot. Right, next release we got here is Firefox version 79 that rolls out the web renderer for users of other GPUs than NVIDIA before that. So you can actually now try it if you're on Intel or AMD, which means I think that basically means it should work on any GPU ever out there, right? Yeah, they've also rolled out the Pocket recommendations. If you want to disable them, there's the steps. The steps are just like, why would you, like, come on, Mozilla. Like, every time they do something good and then they just try to do some ad crap in the Firefox with notifications or whatever, and people are like, why? Yeah, I wish they would just focus on doing the browser. Anyhow, it seems like a nice update. There's a bunch of fixes and some developer tooling improvements, and yeah. There are so many frameworks, libraries, and so on. I'm so overwhelmed by them. I just want to learn pure TypeScript and use it everywhere. There is absolutely not, like, okay, there is many frameworks, there is many libraries, but that's a good thing. Now, you are overwhelmed by them because you are probably just started programming, right? So you are like a few years in, you don't know what's going on. Here's the deal. Don't learn libraries, don't learn frameworks. I mean, okay, that's a poor phrasing. Don't just learn a specific framework, learn underlying paradigm that it has, right? So if you learn RxJS, learn reactive programming, right? Because this is essentially what it is. Once you learn reactive programming, once you figure out how this approach works, it wouldn't matter for you if you're using RxJS or if you're using any of the like 25 other analogs for it, like, what was it? There's like RxJS alternative. There was the, what was it? No, this is definitely not RxJS alternatives. What was Kefir.js, for example? Yeah, and there's like a bunch of others basically that are built from scratch, but they work in exactly the same way because all of them follow the reactive programming pattern, right? Same goes for any other library or framework. When you learn the library, also learn the foundations that is built on. Like if you're learning React, learn functional programming, figure out why it's built in the way it is, and then when you pick up the next UI framework that follows the functional programming paradigm, it's going to be very easy for you. You know, if you're learning, I don't know, Angular or Vue, learn MVC, because then once you pick out any other framework that follows MVC, you're already going to know like 90% of it, basically. So, like using pure JavaScript, pure TypeScript is fine, but that would mean that you will have to reinvent all those libraries yourself, which is, well, just a waste of time, like most of the time, right? There are legit cases when it's nice to build it yourself, but most of the time you want to save time and you want to actually use something that already was built for you. Last Firefox, you can see request on get under the network console. Okay, cool. They finally added that. If you learn some React, you can probably learn others easier. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so just follow the model that they use and then go from there. Oh, you can't see request on get. What? Did they break something? That's annoying. Cycle.js is pretty good. Cycle.js is a neat framework, but I found it to be like, the thing about the UI frameworks for me is always not just the framework itself, but also the ecosystem, right? I use React, first of all, because I like the functional programming approach that it takes, or functional-ish, I guess, because it's not like a completely functional. But second of all, because it has an amazing ecosystem that is so big that when I think, okay, I need a video player, I can just go and search for React video player, and I will have like 50 options to pick from, right? I don't have to build it myself. Unfortunately, with tiny frameworks like Cycle, that's usually not the case, right? Even something like Svelte, which is, you know, it's relatively popular, but yeah. They break Firefox stuff every release and need 4 or 5 release for fix. Yeah, okay, I've seen some of that stuff, yeah, in like the bugs that they typically introduce and then don't fix for some. Yeah, that's one of the annoying things about Firefox, and I think this was what actually prompted me to switch back to Chrome, because I tried to use Firefox as my main driver after they released the rewrite on Rust with the engine. What was it called? The one that they use now by default. Was it Server or something? I don't remember. Anyway, it was like a lot faster, a lot nicer and everything, but yeah, basically there was a few bugs that were dragging across 3 or 4 releases, and I was like, no, screw that, I'm just gonna go back to Chrome. And then Edge came out, which, you know, new Edge is a lot better than pretty much everything out there, in my opinion, so I just switched to that. It's okay to break stuff when you have no users. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's okay to break stuff when you have users as well, just, you know, so long as you break it in staging or testing environments. That's kind of the key to it. Or A/B testing with a very small fraction of your users. Like, I think I really like the way that GitHub does this, essentially. So when you go to GitHub, I think everyone has this now. So you got this feature preview thing, and you can basically opt in to test their new features here. And yeah, they might break for you, but it's kind of cool. So that is definitely the way to go. Anyhow, next release we got here is Inc version 3, which is available now and brings in a ton of improvements, more stability and performance, and some changes to the components. And if you never heard about it, Ink is essentially a framework that allows you to build a command line tools in React, which looks absolutely awesome. And I really want to rewrite the Exoframe command line using it. This is like one of the reasons why I started Exoframe rewrite to TypeScript. So yeah, maybe we'll get to the point where we actually do a live stream on that, but it looks really good. So if you are writing command line tools, definitely do check this one out. All right, continuing, we got Tailwind CSS version 1.6.0 that adds animation support with 4 default animations that I think cover 99% of the cases you might have want to have in the UI, and then obviously optional animations that you can add yourself. So if you're using Tailwind, do check it out. If you are not using Tailwind, why the hell are you not doing that still? Absolutely check it out, learn. It's one of my favorite CSS frameworks, and it's amazing. Right, the last release of the week we got here is a Babel version 7.11.0 that adds ECMAScript 2021 support in preset env, also adds TypeScript 4.0 support, and a bunch of other minor features. So ECMAScript 2021 support means that you now have logical assignments, numeric separators, and namespace re-exports added, so you can actually use them if you want to, which is, most of those are really nice features. Again, logical assignment is something that I don't think I've seen the case for that in past couple of years working on stuff, but it's nice to have it, I guess. So if that sounds interesting, do check it out and make sure to update your version. All right, that is it for releases. Now we are coming to the libs and demos. We don't even have that many libraries this time around for some reason, but there we go. First one we have is Attain, a Deno API middleware server. So this is essentially an Express-like thing for Deno. So if you're working with Deno, do check this one out. It looks pretty nice. Again, very Express-like. So you basically get more or less the same syntax, slightly different constructor, but that's kind of expected, I guess. The TypeScript and all things included. So if you are again using Deno and wanted to have something like Express, do check this one out. Next thing we got here is tinykeys, a 400-byte modern library for key bindings. Basically, whatever what it says, it allows you to do key combos, key sequences, and stuff like this. If you are curious, if you're using that, do check it out. The feature-wise is not as rich as other analogs out there, but it is super tiny. So, if you are looking for something like this, do check this one out. And next thing we got here is macintosh.js, a virtual Apple Macintosh with System 8 running in Electron. Yep. Somebody took and compiled macOS version 8 using WebAssembly and then just packaged it into Electron app so you can download and run it locally for whatever reason. Like, I don't know why would you need that, but it's a nice learning project, I guess. You can, like, on the other hand, this kind of blows my mind that WebAssembly is powerful enough to be able to compile macOS, like the whole freaking system, down to essentially running in a browser. I'm assuming there is some additional stuff like, file system and everything, bindings to the node. But yeah, it's a really impressive project, even though it is scary as hell. Right, next thing we got here is Moment Guess, a utility package for guessing date formats. So this is essentially a tiny utility that allows you to throw any string at it, and it will try to guess the format for the given string, the date format for the given string. If the format is ambiguous, it will display all of the possible formats based on the Moment.js, so it's pretty heavy, but if you're working with dates a lot and need to guess them, do check Moment Guess out. Next thing we got here is Use Image Color Hook, a hook to grab color pattern from images, render a skeleton color while your original image is still loading. So it's a React hook that does exactly what it says. Basically, it gets the image, calculates the average color, and uses this color as the placeholder while your image is loading. Not exactly sure how it works under the hood. I haven't had time to check, but if you are building an app that has a lot of images and want to have a nice placeholders, then Use Image Color is pretty nice. So do check this one out. Next thing we got here is Merlin, a testing and benchmarking framework for Deno. So this is a Jest-inspired testing framework for Deno, which, look a lot like Jest with some differences, obviously, because Deno. Looks pretty nice. So if you're working with Deno, again, do check this one out. Seems to be a pretty cool framework. Again, you know, Deno does come with testing tools out of the box, so you might not need it. But if you wanted something like Jest, do check it out. This looks pretty good. So this was Merlin, and yeah, check it out if that sounds interesting. Right, so the last thing we got here for today in Libs and Demos is OpenRPC. So a bunch of people essentially gathered and decided to build OpenRPC spec that should define a standard programming language agnostic interface description for JSON RPC 2.0. So the idea here is to provide the same experience you currently get from GraphQL, which is, you know, the typings, the schema, all this kind of stuff, but from JSON RPC, which I personally really like the idea. So I would want to see this implemented as libraries, because the libraries that we get from GraphQL is actually what makes it killer. I mean, that's not feature, right? Killer. How would you put it? Killer. No, that's not feature. God damn it. How do you call it? GraphQL is a killer technology, I guess, to use, right? So maybe if OpenRPC gets far enough, we would get the same tooling for JSON RPC in, well, a bunch of languages, which would be quite nice. So I can definitely see some cases when JSON RPC would be better than using GraphQL. So if you are curious, do check it out. There's like a spec and everything here. I believe there's no packages yet, which, you know, kind of the most important bit for me at least. But it is a really nice initiative, basically. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Right, that is actually it for Libs and Demos. The last thing we got here is an interesting stuff, and it's an announcement for GitHub. GitHub now has public roadmap. So yes, they actually now have GitHub repo that is GitHub/roadmap that includes the full-on GitHub public roadmap that they plan to develop by quarters. And yeah, there's a ton of stuff here. So if you're curious to see how the GitHub will develop over time, you wanted to voice your feedback on the features, upcoming features, the ideas they have, this is now the place to do. Just go here and comment and discuss, and I mean, just, you know, lurk around and see what they want to do, basically. It is really, really cool. That's really nice to see it doing something like this, basically. Right, that is actually it from my side. So if you have any questions or suggestions or links, feel free to throw them right now into the chat. Meanwhile, you can find all the links that I mentioned on GitHub or bxjs.dev as usual. You can join our Discord server to chat about any of that or video games if you want to. You can follow me on Twitter for JavaScript stuff and some random rants. You can follow the Telegram channel if you want to see all the links I gather over the week unfiltered. Some of them don't really make it into this podcast. And you can also listen to the podcast on Anchor in audio form if you want to, or you can also watch it on YouTube or Twitch as a VOD immediately if you missed any of that. Did it work? What do you mean, did it work? What work? Aaron, you have to clarify, I'm not sure. Good book on TS here. Thanks for doing what you do, Tim. Thanks for watching, Tal. You know, I wouldn't be doing this without you guys watching. So this is you guys keep me going. It swallowed the link again. Oh, god damn it. Please share the links in Discord. I will have a look there. And yeah, it's really annoying that YouTube just kills the links and ugh. I don't see any links, at least in this chat. So look up. Is this up enough? We're up. What's going on? Okay, programming language. Okay, yeah, there we go. There's GitHub programming languages bundle. Oh yeah, I think I've seen the email for that. Scala, Go, Perl. Oh really? That's nice. Okay. SQL, PHP, R, Kotlin. Kotlin's a very nice language, by the way. C#, Rust, programming TypeScript. Okay, that's a really nice bundle and just €13. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And there is. So if you are interested in programming books for very cheap, do check out humblebundle.com. They have a pretty nice sale right now for the next, how long is it? For next 16 days. So there you go. Learning to cartoonize using white box cartoon representation, computer vision and pattern recognition. That sounds terrifying. paper. Oh, it's a research paper. And oh, wait. Yes, paper. There is a demo video and there's a source code. Cool. So, so there's the, okay, there's some Chinese website with a lot of stuff. Okay. Yes. What is going on? So there's like a 9-minute video. Tokyo. Yes. So what is it? Did I open the right video? What is going on? Oh. Then like, oh, I see. Okay, so there's a filter on a video that tries to turn it into cartoon. It looks okay-ish. So it's like still not as good as hand-drawn stuff, obviously, but it's an interesting direction. Yeah, and that looks pretty, like, you can still see that's a video, maybe because of the fluidity of the motion or something. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious. Makes real photos and videos looks anime. I mean, it's far from being anime, but it is an interesting effect. I'm guessing, so like this is a very... again, this is a research paper, so, I wouldn't expect any super fancy results from it. But I would be interested to see how the studios will start using that, because they obviously will have a lot more resources to spend on this. And like all the hype in anime right now is using the 3D model stuff and then either drawing over it or just using the very heavily stylized 3D to augment the 2D drawings. Maybe this is what's going to replace the 3D, and that would be very interesting to see what this could look like on the like production grade hardware and a really well trained model. Because this obviously is like, it looks fine for a research paper, but in the real world animation that wouldn't look good enough, basically, right? This is fascinating. Rotoscoping can look a bit ugly. Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, rotoscoping always looks really weird. I guess it's because it's, sort of in this uncanny valley area. But this is fascinating. Like, I would really be interested to see what the, as I said, the real studio that does the animation can do with a tech like this. And on a, beef expensive hardware with a lot of time to train the model, actually. Because you can, if you're a studio, right, you can take your old works, you can train the model on them, and then basically the model can transfer the style to your specific style from the studio. That would be very curious to see. Yeah, that's a pretty neat paper. Yeah, okay. I probably, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna read the paper later. There's a new release of Vue 3 RC5. Okay. I mean, I think there's just basically gonna be like bug fixes. Yeah, it's just bug fixes essentially. So I'm gonna wait until they release the stable version. Surely, again, gonna happen in a week or two. Maybe this week if we're lucky, or I mean next week. But yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. All right. Any more questions or suggestions or things you want to ask? If not, I guess we can just wrap it up here. It was relatively short-ish. Other than that, yeah, I guess we are basically done here. Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds to figure out if you have anything else to say. Other than that, let me see. Did I forget any links? I didn't really forget anything, right? Yep, I mentioned everything else. All right, doesn't seem like we have any more questions or suggestions or links to share. So thank you guys very much for watching as usual. Thank you for your continued support. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And have an awesome rest of the weekend or rest of the week if you're watching the VOD of this. And I see you on Wednesday for the development stream.